So, welcome back to another one of our great business conversation episodes. It's a great series where we talk about all manner of things in the world of professional services. And today we're focusing on legal tech. And I'm delighted to be joined by Jennifer Cathcart from NetDocuments. You're the regional manager, Asia Pacific.
Yes.
Awesome. Got that out and didn't even trip my words that time. I'm going to be looking into all the things happening in the world. We'll obviously be talking about AI and how lawyers are actually now really adapting, and the pace of change is fast. But before we get into that, Jennifer, just to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about your career and what led you to where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for having me. So I've always been in sales, and I've always been in some type of technology sales. I actually moved to Australia about 8 years ago. And when I moved here, I was really just open to doing anything. I just wanted to have a job that I enjoyed. Like, I would be a coffee barista if I needed to be. But I had actually planned this trip when I moved across from the US to Australia. And I really enjoyed the planning piece. And I saw a job that was technology planning and events. And I was like, you know what? That's interesting, because I have some technology background, and I applied for it. That job was quite specialized, but the person actually reached back out to me and said he had just met a vendor who said they were looking for someone in sales. And I had just moved here about 2 weeks ago. So at that point, we got connected, and he was basically the first salesperson for NetDocuments that was Australia based. And that was how we got started. So, and it's been pretty awesome, because at that point in time, back in 2017, there wasn't much of a region. And so I've had the opportunity to kind of have every role in the region and, build things from the ground up. And so now we have a proper region with a rev org. We have 11 people on the sales team as well, and growing very quickly. So it's been a fun journey.
Awesome. So could you highlight some of the sort of key challenges and opportunities right now in the world of legal tech?
Yeah, so it's hard to answer that question without diving straight to generative AI, but I think there's a fundamental challenge within legal tech around change management that go hand in hand. Historically, we've seen lawyers are quite resistant to adapting change. And to be fair, I think no one really likes change in general, but lawyers have historically struggled with that, and how law firms adapt innovation. So we're seeing such a rapid change with the pace of innovation with generative AI, and it's fundamentally changing the way that lawyers work. But what I'm actually seeing is that it is making it easier for them to do that deep thinking, kind of taking away from some of those mundane tasks. And I think it's interesting if you kind of think about when someone goes to law school or becomes a lawyer, there has to be a why behind it. They want to help people. They want to do meaningful work. And so we're kind of in an era now where that's easier for them to do. And some of the things that might have impacted them, there's actually a high percentage of lawyers who go to law school that end up doing something different just because of that not so fun piece of job and just trying to find the information. So we're in a place now where it's an exciting time, because there's technology that can really help accelerate those workflows and allow them to focus on what's meaningful.
So they can start getting into more meaningful work now, but there's still that resistance to new tech and new ideas and new ways of working potentially?
There's definitely resistance. I mean, I think that we are in a place where, 2023, there's a lot of hype around AI. 2024, people are kind of questioning the validity of it and if it's something that is actually going to be as a game changer as everyone said it would be. But for 2025, I'm super excited about it, because I'm seeing that people are really realizing that this is here to stay. If you look back on maybe when the internet first came out, that would have been a new thing. People have been talking about the internet. How is that going to change? We don't talk about that anymore, because that's just life. That is how we work. And so I believe generative AI is on that same page, and that's just going to completely change, not just legal, but everything. And we're seeing that already. So it's not really a matter of accepting, it's just a matter of figuring out what we can do to responsibly adapt and incorporate that into the workflows in a way that works for clients. We're not, there's a lot of factors from a legal tech perspective that need to be considered. And so that's why that's something that we obviously at NetDocuments can really help with.
Brilliant. What a great example.
Yeah.
And it actually reminds me that I now remember when the internet came about. So thanks for making me feel like.
I mean, I do remember getting the first Mac computer and like signing on to AOL and hearing the dial-up noises. So I'm there with you.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Right, so taking this a step further, all this change that's going on, there's a lot, particularly for law firm leaders and those in the business of actually running a law firm, going on right now. And they've been asked to make plans and think about changes and look at their business models. But they're not sure about what's happening here and now, but they have to make plans for the next 3 years and 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's a scary place, particularly for people who traditionally quite like to be in control of things. What should they be thinking of now that can impact those sort of plans for the next few years in their business planning?
Yeah, I'd say there's probably two sides to that. One is that, historically, when people are looking at software, they're buying a point solution. They have a problem.
Yeah.
They find something that solves that problem. A lot of times, they'll engage some users, but like the tech team can make some decisions. Generative AI is a very different type of thing to buy for.
Yeah.
So there's the side of how do you internally make sure you're aligned. So making sure different, practice areas, making sure that your technology department and who's running the IT side of things are understanding kind of the long-term goals and having those internal conversations, because there has to be a level of strategy when you're going to be engaging in some type of evaluation for generative AI. The other thing I would say is that, if you we were talking earlier about, our age and remembering when, dial-up internet was around and that was a new thing.
Yeah.
But you probably recall, there was a time also when we all just watched cable on TV. We paid for cable, and that was where everything was. And we got, we could pay for the premium package and get whatever. And then that made a shift to streaming services. So it's like, oh, great, this is going to be less expensive. And, I can get Netflix and I can get KO and I can get, music on Spotify. And over time, I think most people will admit that they don't really know how much money is coming out for streaming services and subscriptions because of the way that model's changed, and there's something for everything. I think that that's very similar to what's happening with generative AI. There are a lot of players out there, and there is, a lot of people that can solve a problem for you. What I would say is if you're going to be looking for a long-term solution, it's good to look into the vendors you already know and trust.
Yep.
Ones that, specifically with NetDocuments, like we already have all the security and the policies, and those are within our system. So instead of taking content out of that safe place and bring it to AI, we can bring AI to your content. So there's a lot of value in that, meeting lawyers where they work in their workflows. So I think that, if you have a vendor or a platform that you trust, that you're using, that's integrated within your workflows and your systems, finding some AI capabilities within that is definitely going to be a good long-term play.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How are firms right now using legal technology and the legal platforms to get a competitive advantage? Actually, how they put it in practice? What are they actually doing with it? What are they using it for?
Yeah, I think that we're kind of just on the cusp of really understanding it, and the potential is obviously enormous. If you look at the way lawyers work, like the fundamental thing from that they do to use their work is looking at words and documents. And so if you think about a large language model that is actually really powerful for what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. So there's things that you can do like extracting information, summarizing information, things that used to take up a large amount of time can now be done almost instantaneously. And back to what I was saying earlier, it frees them up to focus on some of those deep thinking, meaningful, the why tasks. I also think that that's going to play into, people wanting to excel in their careers as a lawyer, the retention strategy from a law firm perspective, making sure that they're enabling people to do their best work and enjoying what they're doing and stay there long term. And I also think that it's a win-win for the clients in general, because in a way it's giving more access to justice in general. So that's something that can be, a positive impact for society as a whole, which I know is a very big picture view. But I think that there is a lot of potential in getting away from that, like, is this going to replace lawyers? That's not going to happen, but it can certainly enable them to do their best work.
Which is great, and having that wider access, absolutely. And sort of touching back on something else we mentioned earlier, people have used off-the-shelf kind of things, ChatGPT, and it's made up cases and stuff. So that really kind of hammers home the need to perhaps use trusted vendors and a platform within your own system that's got trusted information inside it. Is that how they use it?
I mean, your data, your intellectual property is the most valuable thing that you have, your knowledge.
Yeah.
And law firms in particular, that's extremely important. So being able to leverage that information to help you do better work. The key there is also, if you're asking questions, if you're putting things out there, making sure that's not going out for the world to see where it could get in the wrong hands, but it's in a safe place to where you can really leverage the generative AI large language model to pull the information, extract information, get timelines, help you draft something. There's so many possibilities where it fits right into your workflow. But it's really critical that it's within an environment that has those policies and guardrails in place. Otherwise, there is that opportunity for risk.
Fantastic. Which leads to our next question, Jen. In your view, what skills and competencies do lawyers now need to have or develop to thrive in a more technology-driven legal environment?
That's a good question. I think there's a few ways to look at that. One, in general, I would say they need to be curious. I think that's so important with no matter what you're doing in life, is to understand things are always changing. The only thing constant in life is change. So being curious and open to new ways of working is going to be critical to enable you to, get to that next level of innovation. The other piece is with Gen AI and the way that tech works, as it's not a point solution, there is that level of prompting and understanding what you're trying to achieve. So I think understanding that it's going to take a couple iterations to figure out what result you actually need to get. And it's a really good exercise to understand what are the key things here that are important for us to put into a prompt, and how can that enable me to get exactly what I need from this information. And I think that people are used to technology. If it's not giving the exact same answer every time, it must be wrong.
Yep.
But I think we need to kind of adopt our way of thinking with that, because generative AI is a large language model. It is kind of like a human. So the answers will vary and change.
Awesome. I like that idea of being curious.
Yeah.
So now into my heartland, at least, or something I'm very passionate about, and that's the reason why I have my business. But you've got a really strong background, Jen, in account management or sales, as we can easily call it. And I'm curious, over that time, you must have built lots of long-term profitable business relationships. How do you go around that? What are the main things you do to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's easy to answer, because the first thing that comes to mind is being trustworthy, being accountable. So if you're authentic and you do what you say you're going to do, and you're not, over-promising and under-delivering, that's absolutely the kind of criteria for a long-term relationship. One of the things that I love about sales is getting to know people and understanding a bit more about them and what drives their business and what they're looking to achieve. And I think that if you look at it as meeting new people, they can be friends as well. It's not necessarily like all conversations need to be business. It really allows for those long-term relationships.
Fantastic. Finally, for a bit of fun, I ask this all our guests on the business conversation, and it's one of my favorite questions. What's your one tip in the world of BD, sales, marketing, whatever it is, to help secure and win new work?
That's a good question. I think similar to what I was saying earlier, you have to be authentic. So whatever, I'm sure you'll have mentors and people that will inspire you and, things you want to incorporate into how you work with people, but you have to be authentic to yourself and how you work. And with that also comes like the trust piece and making sure that you're not saying things to win an opportunity that don't necessarily align with the direction of your business, that you're honest and transparent with how you work. Those are really key, but just being yourself is you got to believe in that and trust in that, because that's ultimately going to be your superpower.
Believe in yourself is a superpower.
Absolutely.
Love it. Great answer.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming in, Jen. It's been another amazing business conversation. I've learned a lot. I'm sure you've learned a huge amount. There's a playlist here so you can see all our other previous business conversations. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss many of the great content we've got here, which are these business conversations and a whole heap of practical tips on how to do business development and marketing in the world of professional services. But once again, thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.